Today is Saturday. It is the 24th of August, and we are coming up towards Labor Day. We're not quite there yet. We're in Vermont. We are in an area that is to the west of the Five Bogs and revisiting an area of potential interest that we came upon in the very beginning of the return for this year, and we are going to have a look there again, kind of a follow-up to the original look. We'll see what we find. It's still new territory, so I can't really throw presumptions at it. And we'll talk about some other things as well. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the massive update that Steve Coles broke the other day about people that have hot new topics to discuss. So I'd be remiss if I didn't bring it up and have my own thoughts on it. So we'll do that as well. But right now we're going to get going. We got a little ground to cover to get to where I'm going to be. And we'll talk about it there. So we'll move on along. We'll see what we find. Again, let me be the first one to hop on the gravy train and say, you've got a better than even % chance this is going to end up being nothing more than the latest hoax. And I am not cynical of the subject when I say this. I'm going to try to project my thoughts on this from a yin and yang perspective. My cynicism and my skepticism are not of the subject. They are of the community itself, because the community is rife with shysters. And no, I'm not necessarily calling Steve Coles a shyster. I'm just saying that he is part of the community and he's covering this as well. He goes about things a little bit differently than I do, I think, in our presentation of things. And that's fine. I'm trying to find a hole so we can get out and just have a look at the pond before we keep going towards our final destination. A little thicker in here later in the year, I notice. But I'm going to jump on early and say this has a couple of the ear markers of the Steve Hyde formula of hoaxage. And when I say I told you so, I'm not going to cry when you get mad at me, because I told you so. This is probably as good as we're going to get without going through things I don't really care to, because this is my primary destination. I'm just stopping for a check-in and the like. At least the fog kind of burned off, so that if we did have to do well, we don't have to, but if we were going to do a drone flyover for an intro or something, we don't have the fog to be a concern. Because last week when we were up here it was all cloudy and sort of foggy, so maybe I could have, maybe I couldn't have. It was kind of a judgment call, and I don't really want to get a new drone yet, so that's a separate argument for another day. Yeah, the reason I'm cynical about hyping shit like this is they're doing a documentary, so of course they're going to hype shit. Coyote Peterson, a YouTube wildlife guy, found a skull in the last year and a half that turned out to be bullshit. To my knowledge, he never really made any effort to explain this, but it was basically to bring attention to his YouTube channel. Plain and simple. He was flexing a little bit of P.T. Barnum. And if it worked for him, well, that's the ultimate measure of whether it was worth it for him or not. He's not above hype, obviously. But that's my thought on it. We're going to keep covering ground towards our final destination. We just wanted to pop in here. It's one of the spots along the way I'll check on. The reason I'm huffing so hard, I'm on like 3 cups of coffee, which is more than I probably should have had, but oh well. Anyway, we're going to take our first segment break and all that. But yeah, I think it's basically setting up to be a hoax, and The question, the real mystery is how long are the people in question going to milk it? What little part of their background will rear its head to kind of put a kibosh on all the fun and games thereof? You know, I know people get all hyped up, but if you do, you're doing that to yourself. In all reality, you are basically committing a self-inflicted wound at that point, because you get built up, you get built up. This is like the same kind of bullshit you saw during the Daisy in a Box nonsense back in 2013. Build it up, build it up. It was the same kind of shit, and then it came out to be a hoax. And like, lo and behold, look at the players involved. Anything involving the MABRC is going to reek of a hoax. They've been hoaxers forever, and nothing has changed. And even though they've broken up, all parties involved there are suspect too. And I know that's not popular speak with the cool kids in the community, but oh well. If you want to pursue the truth of the subject, you don't always get to be popular, and that's fine. Anyway, first segment break coming up. We'll be back in a bit, and we'll make it to our destination and go deeper in and see what we find in there in terms of tracks or whatever else chooses to present itself or not. So we will see you in a bit. Okay, this is kind of a preamble to defeat. This shit's a lot thicker than I thought, and the distance I have to go to where I wanted to get to is a bit more daunting than I had thought. So I'm looking for a way in. And so it's a judgment call. I haven't even gotten beyond the trail yet, and I'm looking for a way in past the initial thickness of this. And if it's all like this, then I might be replanning my day, since it's relatively early enough to do so. So let's... The problem is, effectively, just to break this down for you, everything is like this. Lots of hills, lots of that, lots of terrain. You can't see where your feet are going. And this may be a mission for later in the year when the shit thins out more, like late October, November. There's no way really through this that isn't miserable. So much as I hate to admit it, I'm going to fall back and punt and go to another area, because this area just doesn't work. So I'm aggravated, but I have better things to do today than get lost in there and get turned around, because you're going to have a hell of a time if you do. So we're going to fall back and punt, so bear with us. This is going to be the segment where I whine because I'm admitting defeat, and I hate fucking doing that. But this is like a thin spot around the pond where you can get in. Actually, we're going to go along the pond side and see if I can get in that way. This is where I get a second wind. We're going to do that instead, so I'll be back in a bit. Let me ascertain how doable that is. I really don't like admitting defeat because I really didn't have a plan B today, and I normally would. We're going to do that instead, so bear with me again. Come to plan B. We're going to go the low road, which is still a wee bit treacherous due to the ferns trying to grab you on the... That incline right there is steeper than it looks when you can't see from a downward facing angle where your feet are going, which is getting tired. My new boots are proving not to be as nimble as I thought. So plan B effectively is going to be to follow the water line and see how far into this little system of ponds we can get as we follow the mud line and see, aside from how many frogs jump away from me, what we find in the way of tracks. Because this I can navigate and at least see what I'm doing. You get into that, it all starts looking the same. And that is where you can get into trouble. So we're going to stay by the mud line and change my approach. But rather than wander away feeling all sour about it and just giving up, because like I said, as I walked away, I started realizing you don't really have a plan B, so you son of a bitch. I don't want to spend my whole day struggling to come up with a half-assed plan B when I had this in the first place. So this is all going to be tall grass and grabber bushes grabbing at me anyway. So this is still, fuck you, going to suck to some degree. But again, if I can get over to where the goddamn water line is, despite the efforts of the terrain to thwart me, then this becomes a bit more doable. So I've sidetracked from my intended subject matter a little bit, but we'll kind of travel through that off and on as I do more. So this isn't really ideal for tracking per se because it's not as muddy. We're going to do a pond sweep of sorts where it's a little bit more navigable, and we'll go deeper in the deeper fall, because this is actually probably good habitat for grouse that time of year. And we can multitask between squatching and hunting birds. But let's focus on the matter at hand. If you stay along the tree line here, at least you can see where you're going and cover some element of distance. We're going to run out of that over there. And where I'm wanting to go is in the tree line. The question is, can I see far enough in to navigate that? Because it's doable, but if you get up on the hill, that stuff gets so thick. I really don't want to deal with that today. So we're gonna stay as close to the pond system here, and then I think it runs out over there though, until you hit the big meadow I was gunning for. But let's see how we do. I normally do this kind of stuff, like I said last week, earlier in the year, and it's not as thick. You get to August and it's like up here, you get into peak undergrowth, and navigation can be trickier depending on where you are. So I could go around the back of this, but if it's all like this, you're not going to have a lot of trackiness. So makes you wonder how good a fishing spot this is too. One day I'll just maybe come back here and throw a line in the water and see what wanders by. So let's see. I can kind of see the opening over there through the trees. Let me take another break. I hate to keep doing this, but I want to see how far into this I can get while still maintaining eye contact with the pond over here, because that's probably going to be my way back. Now, it's right fucking there. Never mind. It's right over there. I'm going to overland over there. I think that's the same meadow, if you can see it in there. I'm letting myself psych myself out. You can kind of bop over and around. So I'm going to do that, but it's looking kind of thick, so I'll have to kind of still stay low. Anywho, let's do that. Let me cover some ground. We'll pop out on the meadow when I can kind of focus on that a little bit better. I got to go around and do some navigating in the first place. And to the mushroom geeks among us, those are mushrooms. Enjoy. So explaining that, go ahead if you can. So the meadow's over there, but I got to make my way along this if I can. And due to that, I don't necessarily dismiss things out of hand. Because again, I've seen some weird shit that I can't really quantify, but as the redneck saying goes, I seen it. So, and I think I'm fairly good at being aware of my surroundings enough that anyone who says, well, what you saw was a bear gets a slap in the head, because in the last 10 years I have had as many up-close sightings of a bear. So I think it's fair to say that I probably can pick one out of a lineup of woodland wildlife. Of course, there was an interesting example of that in Vermont yesterday where somebody detected a very rare visitor to Vermont, but it was, you look at it for all intent and purpose, it looks, at a distance anyway, like a bobcat till you see the big paws and all that, and you realize that's actually a Canadian lynx, which on rare occasion they do get in this state. It's just a damn rare thing to see one. Same thing with like a mountain lion here or in Connecticut, because I have seen one in Connecticut. We actually had one get hit by a car in 2007 that made the evening news, and there's the cameraman putting the camera on it, probably to the irritation of the double EP, but that being our answer to the DNR. But regardless, you can't call that a bobcat because it wasn't one. And you can deny until your merry contentment that they're not here, but the fact remains, once you have someone get mauled by one, or worse, enjoy your lawsuit, because that is a very real wrongful death lawsuit. You knew they were here, and when you say you didn't, the local hunting population of north central Connecticut is amply aware of the presence of one. I have seen it. It is in fact there. As I navigate this little, I don't know if you call this a ridge line or what, but it's a little bit more tame than the thick shit up there. Not by a lot, but a little. This thick pine shit is very reminiscent of Manitou. And I almost had a calling to get in there this week. Maybe I'll do that next week, but I have a longer weekend and more time to do that. That is a time commitment to get in and out of there. That one is tricky to the point of needing some prep time. This one, it's not as far out as Manitou, but you can kind of tell by the terrain, this is a little bit of a bitch to get through. And so weirdness is there, which is why I think the coalition types take a hit, because they're immediately, with no proof it doesn't exist. Well, my experience would run contrary to that assessment. And, you know, I know that in a case like that, they'll start deriding, and this is actually, again, the textbook application, as I rip the shit out of my hands, of malignant narcissism. And the coalition, like it or not, is a mutual admiration society of people with that mindset. And they're toxic little bitches. I say that unapologetically. And it's why they're probably, if you're a skeptic, they're probably not the most wholesome environment for you. If you're somebody that actually believes in Bigfoot, less so. Why am I not taking pictures? I'm going to take a moment and do that through here, as I determine if I can get over there, because that's where the actual meadow is. It's over there too, but you got to get around this shit. So we're going to do that. I also need to navigate this. So I would like my hands free. So we're going to take another segment break while I do a few things. Oh, I made the meadow, but I'm going to follow the water line to get back, because that is the path of least aggravation. I was hoping to cross over into that stuff, but if it's like that all the way through, that might not be the easiest thing to pull off. Let's kind of check out the perimeter here, but I don't think it's going to get any better. As I'm looking down into this. You can't see where your feet are. You're going to get soaked in this. So let me just... Good God, this fucking shit is unfreaking even. That's your way back. I try not to break my effing ankle on this stuff. And if you're of squeamish stomach, I'm sorry, but I've abandoned any attempt to avoid swearing. This is like that annoying, a walk through this crap. And yes, I know, nobody made me do this. I do this stuff to myself, and I suffer for my art, something, but regardless, we came out here to get to this thing, and we're here now, so we're doing this. And I curse every goddamn branch that I step on between here and the way back. So, here we have a photogenic meadow that is bigger on paper than it is when you actually get here, I'll admit. But the fun, I wanted to get into that stuff over there, but it looks just as thick and treacherous as the shit is to get here. And getting lost in this, you can't even like camp out in this stuff without misery because it's just that pokey, pointy, and that kind of thing. So we're going to ascertain nature of terrain since we're here, and it's all this mushy, mossy stuff that you see down there, along with my favorite allergen, as I'm literally covered in spider webs too, by the way. Not that you care, you're not here enjoying this with me, but me, oh my, I'm going to decide how. I think actually you lose the little mound of walkability here. Let's see. It is looking that way, and you want to go the way of Bullwinkle, where he doesn't care if he gets his feet wet. So while I'm here, you guessed it, it's photography time, and we'll then think about my next move from there, because all this shit is thick as thick could be. I'm going to make a return trip probably like first week in November or the last week in October, when a lot of this crap thins out and you'll be able to see things better. But this time of year, just you can't see the undergrowth and dips in. Like the terrain just works against you to a degree you don't really think about. So with that in mind, I'm going to take yet another segment break, and I'll be back in a bit while I get some pictures in, and then we can try to swear our way back out of here the way that we more or less came. But yeah, I'll be back in a little bit. Back. We're winded. We're back. Recent beaver activity. Probably from that. We just walked through that to get back here. I need to remember in the future that walking through the upper level of this little thing is quite the little workout. I don't know if it reflects on the camera, but my, in all likelihood, as they say, I'm going to sleep good tonight. The workout of going through there and then getting back, not to be underestimated. And it's just, it's not even really any distance as much as the terrain. All things like that. If you go up in there and you have ferns covering it so you can't even necessarily see it, you're walking through all kinds of fun stuff like this. So tentatively, we're moving towards the end of the video, unless I think of something more compelling to say. I've covered the big news as much at this range of conjecture this early on about the documentary. I'm just going to call it a documentary situation. They're claiming they have footage. Okay, well, without actually seeing what it is, it's vaporware, as IT people say, because without meat on the bone, people have made claims before. The Falcon Project was making all these lovely projects, and when they were in the coalition years ago, dropping hints and teasing and all that, being coy, if you will. And you can find out more right after you give a big, fat, juicy donation. That's where you start. Yeah, you want to know more? Give me money. That is the first of many red flags moving you towards hoax country. And this, they're already trying to do the teasing, being coy, tantalizing BS. I understand it's TV and that's what TV does, which is why I say fuck everybody in Hollywood. They're all scumbags anyway. Fuck them very much. But anyway, regardless of how you feel about that. And no, I haven't had cable TV in years. I don't miss it, and fuck TV right in the ear. So anyway, I will have to remember to make this video not for children, but I do that with all my videos because that way I don't have to worry about what I say as much. I'd rather be an open filter of my own thoughts rather than have somebody get all wokety woke about it or offended moganoid just to be equal airtime. So at this point, I'm going to ascend back to not so much civilization, but a logging road to get to another area. And I'm not going to declare the video over yet, but I do want to focus on getting back to some element of terra firma that doesn't look like this after having gone actually not a lot of distance. Like I said, it's just getting in and getting out of this. The terrain is apparently a lot bitchier in the midsummer when all the undergrowth is in your way and you can't really see where you're going because you're going through stuff like this and a whole lot of... That's the easy stuff too. I was actually doing stuff a lot harder, but you get to that, I'm going to bop over that log and make my way up there, and I will regroup and see if there's more video to be made or not. The big news was the documentary claims. We'll see where that turns in a few weeks or whatever. They will obviously try to milk the tantalization into the conference season of the fall. We are back to wrap up. Hopefully you enjoyed our scramble through the territory we went through. There are people out here shooting now. Being towards the end of August, I'm not sure what's in season. I don't think anything's in season in Vermont yet. So then again, I'm an out-of-stater, so let me know if I'm wrong. And other than that, like, subscribe, comment, suggestions, tell me I suck, but tell me why I suck if you're going the hostile route, and we'll catch you on the next one. So for, what is today, the 24th, I think? Yeah, I'm going to say 24th. I'm going to say we're wrapping this one up. And hopefully you like what you saw. If you want to see something else, like I said, speak up. Otherwise, we're going to catch you on the next one. And with that